Hey, excuse me. Hey there, everybody. Welcome. We are here today in a study called A Man After God's Own Heart, the life of David in the Bible, and we're in 2 Samuel 18, and quite a chapter ahead of us here today. If you can read along with us in the Bible, turn there, 2 Samuel chapter number 18. I was counting down the chapters until we see the end of the life of David, and there's not much left. David dies in 1 Kings chapter number 2. There are only 24 chapters in 2 Samuel, so 18, 19, 20, and then 21 to 24, 7 chapters. 2 in First Kings rather is 9, and then I'm going to go to Psalm 51 when we're all done with this and look at the Psalm of repentance that David made. There might be some things in First Chronicles that we deal with as well. We'll see, taking it a day at a time, but we're probably within 2 weeks of being finished with this series here today, part number 36. So perhaps 50 lessons out of the life of David. Time will tell. All right, 2 Samuel chapter 18. Spoiler alert. Absalom dies today. Well, not today, but in the text that we'll read today. 2 Samuel 18, verse number 1. David numbered the people that were with him, and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them. And David sent forth a third part of the people under the hand of Joab, and a third part under the hand of Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, and a third part under the hand of Ittai the Gittite. If you remember Ittai, he was brought up, I think, chapter number 16, maybe 15 even, and he was new to the kingdom, but David trusted him enough that he's going to put him in charge of a third of the people. Now remember, we left off yesterday with the counsel of Ahithophel being rejected by Absalom, and instead the counsel of Hushai being accepted. Hushai said that Absalom should take the people, lead them into battle against his father, pursue him and chase him down. And so that's what Absalom's going to do. The spies that were left in Jerusalem have gotten this information to David, and so he's getting the people together and organized as they flee away and prepare to fight Absalom. Verse number 3. And, no, I left off early, didn't I? Verse 2, and David sent forth a third of the people under the hand of Joab, a third part under the hand of Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, and a third part under the hand of Ittai the Gittite. And the king, and this is an important thing to not miss, said unto the people, I will surely go forth with you myself also. So David isn't afraid to go into battle himself. How about this? Had David gone into battle back in 2 Samuel chapter 11, when the kings went forth into battle, he wouldn't have committed adultery with Bathsheba. He wouldn't have killed Uriah. He wouldn't have brought the judgment of God into his life and into his family. Perhaps Amnon wouldn't have taken advantage of his sister Tamar. Absalom wouldn't have been frustrated at David because he didn't deal with Amnon. Absalom wouldn't have killed Amnon, and Absalom wouldn't now be after the throne, and Absalom wouldn't die here. If only David had done the right thing all those years prior to now. Every decision you make can be an impactful decision upon your future. We need to be wise in what we decide to do. So he says, I'm going to go forth with you. He's not afraid. He'll do what needs to be done. But the people answered, Thou shalt not go forth. For if we flee away, they will not care for us, neither if half of us die will they care for us. But now thou art worth 10,000 of us. Therefore now it is better that thou succor us out of the city. So David says, I'm going into battle. And the people said, Please, no. They said, if we run, they're not going to chase us. They're not after us. If we die, they don't care if we die. They're not after us. They're after you. And you are worth 10,000 of us. What faith they have, what confidence they possess in their King David. And so they want him to just protect them, keep them safe, and keep himself safe. And the king said unto them, What seemeth you best I will do. So he gives in, acquiesces to the people's wishes. And the king stood by the gate side, and all the people came out by hundreds and by thousands. And the king commanded Joab and Abishai and Ittai, those are the three men that are in charge of these three troops of people. He says, deal gently for my sake with the young man, even with Absalom. And all the people heard when the king gave all the captains charge concerning Absalom. So David tells Ittai, Joab, and Abishai, deal gently with Absalom, and everyone's aware of his wishes for him. So the people went out into the field against Israel, and the battle was in the wood of Ephraim, where the people of Israel were slain before the servants of David. And there was a great slaughter that day of 20,000 men. So this battle's taking place in a forest, and David's people, they get the victory. They killed 20,000 of Absalom's people. And the heartbreaking thing about it is, they weren't Absalom's people. They were David's people. These are all Israelites. This is a civil war going on. Two factions within the same country are going after each other. For the battle was there scattered over the face of all the country. And this is an interesting statement. The wood devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. Meaning that the people weren't used to fighting in these types of environments, and so it wasn't so much that one side had an advantage over the other as much as the disadvantage that the woods caused Absalom's men. And notice here, Absalom met the servants of David, and Absalom rode upon a mule, and the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak. And his head caught hold of the oak, and he was taken up between the heaven and the earth, and the mule that was under him went away. Very bizarre happening here. Do you remember a couple of chapters ago when we learned of Absalom's long, thick, beautiful head of hair? I only say it that way because that's how God describes it. He says that Absalom was a beautiful, handsome, gorgeous man, and he has this very long hair, and he put it up. I forget with what word. I think bolt was the word. He puts his hair up, and I presume it's just a long wooden rod, if you will. So he's got this big head of hair, and it's all pulled up, and this wooden rod is run through it. And he's riding this mule through this forest, and he gets to this particular oak tree, and the boughs of the oak tree, they end up catching or snagging on that wooden rod or his hair. Somehow, his hair gets caught in the branches of this oak tree, and he's riding a mule. And instead of the mule stopping when his hair gets hung up, the mule keeps on going. There's an old preacher who's in heaven now named Lester Roloff, and he preached a sermon on this passage called "And the Mule Walked On." And that's exactly what happens. The hair of Absalom is caught in the tree, and as he's there tangled up, stuck in the tree, the mule keeps on going. And the Bible says that Absalom is taken up between the heaven and the earth. So Absalom's hanging from this tree by his hair. Can you imagine? How about this? The vanity of Absalom led to his downfall. Something to consider, isn't it? Verse 10, and a certain man saw it and told Joab, and said, behold, I saw Absalom hanged in an oak. So somebody sees this happen, and they ride up to Joab and say, hey, Joab, you're not going to believe it. Absalom's hanging back here by his hair from this tree. And Joab said unto that man, unto the man that told him, and behold, thou sawest him, why didst thou not smite him there to the ground? And I would have given thee 10 shekels of silver and a girdle. So Joab says, you saw Absalom? Why didn't you kill him? He says, if you'd have killed him, I would have given you a promotion. So this particular fee, this 10 shekels of silver and a girdle, it was a military promotion. It would have basically made this man an officer. So he'd go from being an infantryman to an officer just like that for having killed Absalom. And the man said unto Joab, though I should receive 1,000 shekels of silver in mine hand, Yet would I not put forth mine hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king charged thee and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Beware that none touch the young man Absalom. And so this young man, when Joab tells him he should have killed him, he would have been promoted, the man says, 10 shekels of silver? I wouldn't have accepted 1,000 shekels of silver. My king said, don't touch him. Deal gently with him. I was there. I heard him say it. I heard him tell you and Abishai and Ittai, don't touch him. So, no, I'm not going to touch him. Well, Joab has different feelings about this, doesn't it? Let's keep reading. Verse 13, Otherwise I should have wrought falsehood against mine own life. For there is no matter hid from the king. He said, the king would have found out who killed his son. And thou thyself wouldst have set thyself against me. He said, you probably would have turned me in for it. Then said Joab, I may not tarry thus with thee. And he took 3 darts in his hand, and thrust them through the heart of Absalom, while he was yet alive in the midst of the yoke. Can you imagine this? Because Joab and Absalom know each other. They have spoken one with another. No doubt they interacted a number of times. And here, Joab, do you remember when Absalom burned down Joab's fields just so he could have a meeting with him? So here, can you imagine Absalom hanging by the hair from this tree while Joab rides up to him? And he's got these 3 darts in his hand, and Joab's looking Absalom dead in the eyes, and Absalom's looking back at Joab. And Absalom wonders, what is he going to do? Perhaps he overheard this conversation. I don't know. But he rides up, and Joab takes those 3 darts and just thrusts them into the chest, into the heart of Absalom. Verse 15, And 10 young men that bare Joab's armor compassed about, and smote Absalom and slew him. And so 10 of Joab's armor bearers surround Absalom, and they begin to kill him. I don't know, they took swords and ran him through repeatedly, but they kill Joab. And Joab blew the trumpet. I'm sorry, they killed Absalom. Boy, the drama there was lost, wasn't it? And Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing after Israel, for Joab held back the people. So the battle is over. They did what they came to do. They weren't there to kill 20,000 men. They were there to kill Absalom. And Absalom is dead. And they took Absalom and cast him into a great pit in the wood. So there's this pit in the middle of the forest here. They throw his body into that pit and laid a very great heap of stones upon him. And all Israel fled, every one to his tent. So all of Joab's men, they're out of here. Their cause is defeated. Their man is dead. They got nothing else to fight for. Now Absalom in his lifetime had taken and reared up for himself a pillar, which is in the king's dale. For he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. And he called the pillar after his own name, and it is called unto this day Absalom's place. So here's more of the vanity of Absalom. He doesn't have a son to carry on his name, so he gets this pillar, and he puts it in the middle of the king's dale, and he names it Absalom's place, because I have to be remembered. I want people to remember who I am. Well, we remember who he was, and we don't remember who he was for good reasons, do we? Now, this chapter is going to wrap up with another very unusual story here. Then said Ahimaaz. Remember Ahimaaz? He's the one that wanted to be one of the spies, to give David news and intel. Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, let me now run and bear tidings, bear the king tidings, how that the Lord hath avenged him of his enemies. So all Ahimaaz knows for sure is that Absalom's men have retreated, and David's men have won this battle. And so he wants to be the one, he's a very fast runner, he wants to be the one to run to David and tell David that he's won the victory today. And Joab said unto him, Thou shalt not bear tidings this day, but thou shalt bear tidings another day. So Joab's saying, look, today's not your day, Ahimaaz. I know you want to do this, but not today. But this day thou shalt bear no tidings, because the king's son is dead. He says, look, you don't have anything to say. You don't know how to put this. I want you to stay out of it. Then said Joab to Cushai, go tell the king what thou hast seen. And Cushai bowed himself unto Joab and ran. So Ahimaaz is left standing there like a dope, because this other man has been chosen to tell David. Then said Ahimaaz the son of Zadok yet again to Joab, but howsoever? He said, what gives, Joab? Why aren't you letting me do this? I pray thee, let me, I pray thee, also run after Cushai. And Joab said, wherefore wilt thou run, my son, seeing that thou hast no tidings ready? He says, look, you don't know how to break this kind of news to the king. Why do you want to do this so badly? You're getting ahead of yourself. But howsoever, he said he, let me run. And he said unto him, run. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain, and here's a problem. He overran Cushai. So Ahimaaz is actually a faster runner than Cushai. Cushai's already taken off. Perhaps Joab thought that he had enough of a head start, and he had delayed Ahimaaz long enough that he wouldn't get to David first, but that's not going to happen. Verse 24, and David sat between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate unto the wall, and lifted up his eyes, and looked, and behold, a man running alone. So David's waiting to hear what's going on, and one of the watchmen sees someone running. And the watchman cried and told the king, and said, and the king said, if he be alone, there is tidings in his mouth. And he came apace and drew near. And the watchman saw another man running. And the watchman called unto the porter, and said, behold, another man running alone. And the king said, he also bringeth tidings. And the watchman said, methinketh the running of the foremost is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok. And the king said, he is a good man, and cometh with good tidings. And Ahimaaz called and said unto the king, all is well. Was all well? No. And he fell down to the earth upon his face before the king, and said, blessed be the Lord thy God, which hath delivered up the men that lifted up their hand against my lord the king. And so Ahimaaz tells David that he's won the battle today, and that God has delivered those men who rebelled against him into his hand. And the king said, is the young man Absalom safe? This is all the king cares about. He's worried about his son. And Ahimaaz answered, when Joab sent the king's servant, meaning himself, or Cushai rather, and me thy servant, I saw a great tumult, but I knew not what it was. So Ahimaaz really isn't telling the truth here. Joab told him the king's son was dead, but he doesn't know how to say that to the king. He's not prepared to say that. And so he says, I don't know what's happening, king. And the king said unto him, turn aside and stand here. And he turned aside and stood still. And now what Joab had said is going to happen has happened. Ahimaaz had no tidings. He didn't know how to give this news, and so he's standing there like a big dope again. And behold, Cushai came, and Cushai said, tidings, my lord the king, for the Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. And the king said unto Cushai, is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushai answered, the enemies of my lord the king, and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. And so Cushai, with some tact, with some eloquence, with some empathy, he tells the king that his son is dead. And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate, and wept. And as he went, thus he said, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would God I had died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son. I understand David's heartbreak. I understand his pain. At the same time, he's responsible for it himself. Something to consider is the parents of Uriah. I wonder if they wept when he was killed. I wonder if they wept when they learned that the king had taken their daughter-in-law. I wonder if they felt the pain that that David is now feeling. And of course, the answer to all that is yes. David's simply reaping what he's sown. He's killed, and now he's felt the pain of death. He's killed others' son, and now he's had his own son killed. And it's heartbreaking, and it's terrible, and perhaps two wrongs don't make a right, but God saw fit to have David reap what he had already sown himself. And going back to this matter of Joab, did Joab do the right thing? If you notice the wording here, David says, "Be gentle with Absalom for my sake." What was David thinking about? He was thinking about himself. He was thinking about Absalom. Joab was thinking about Israel and the people. And in the long story short, Joab did the right thing. He took out the threat for the nation. David's feelings shouldn't be spared at the expense of the rest of the kingdom. And so Joab, while operating outside of the direct order given to him by the king, he does the right thing and he kills Absalom. And there it is. Tragic, horrible. Everything about this is terrible. Couldn't have been avoided after the sin of David. Before the sin of David, probably could have been avoided. All right, terrible. Hate to leave you like that, but that's the end of the chapter. We'll pick it up tomorrow from there in chapter number 19. Thanks so much for watching. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.